scientific evidence is overwhelming that there are at least some non-human animals who are cognitively, just extraordinarily complex. Complex at the levels of potentially a human 4-year-old or a human 5-year-old, in some ways even more, human 6-year-old or even more. Perhaps not across the board, but some of their important cognitive abilities might be at that sort of a level. And if you've ever, you ever met a human 4 or 5-year-old, you're dealing with an incredibly complicated being. The fact that they are so cognitively complex gives rise to their dignity, the way it would in human beings, and to their autonomy. They have at least what I call now practical autonomy. They have the ability to desire, to act intentionally, and they have some sort of ability to understand that they are doing that. And so once you do that, I think you've tripped the wire for what you need for at least basic kinds of rights, dignity rights, autonomy rights. And then you have some creatures who are just go far, far beyond that. Some cetaceans, some whales, apes, even African gray parrots or African elephants probably do. And so when on one hand you have beings like these animals, say a chimpanzee, who has these extraordinarily complex cognitive abilities that make that being quite autonomous, and yet that being today under our legal system is treated as a legal thing with no rights at all. So you have him up here. Then say right over here you might have a human child who is born without a brain. And she cannot feel, is not sentient, is not conscious, never will be. She simply doesn't have a brain. All she has is a brain stem. She's anencephalic. She has a brain stem that permits her to digest and breathe. And she has a whole panoply of rights. In fact, she may have negative rights, negative immunity rights. In fact, she certainly does. We can't eat her, we can't use her for biomedical research, but she also may even have positive rights. The idea of can she pull the plug on herself? Does she want to live? That have to be exercised through a guardian ad litem. But she still has those rights, and the guardian is supposed to be doing what she would want if she were sentient and conscious. So here you have human beings, right, who basically have no autonomy, no consciousness, no sentience at all, being treated as legal persons with a whole panoply of rights. And here you have, say, chimpanzees or bonobos, or pygmy chimpanzees, who are extraordinarily cognitively complex, who have autonomy, who should have dignity, and yet they're treated as things. So as a matter of equality, there is something wrong here. Now, when you make that argument in front of a judge, I think a judge can deal with that in one of 3 ways. The judge could say, yes, your argument is based on the fact that equality is a fundamental value of our legal system, and that's a mistake. We really don't care about equality. And I think that's wrong. I think under the common law, under our Constitution, in all Western philosophy, equality is seen as an extremely important legal principle, legal value. Okay, so then you could say, well, I accept the argument of equality, but I think that the anencephalic child should be treated like the chimpanzee, so neither of them should have any rights. And indeed, 100 years ago, that is exactly what would have happened. But I think those days are gone. I don't think you would ever find judges who would say any human being can be treated as a thing anymore. In fact, it could even approach slavery. So that leaves you with only one principled way of resolving this, and that is to say, well, the chimpanzee needs to be treated, at least in some fundamental ways, like the anencephalic child. And she has to be given some of the fundamental rights, at least, that the anencephalic child has, such as bodily liberty or bodily integrity. Or you violate the fundamental principle of equality. And so if as I argue, certain values underline the common law, and some of them are fairness, making principled decisions, then in order to make a fair and just and principled decision, you need to begin treating the chimpanzee, say, that was the animal, the way you would the anencephalic, non-sentient, non-conscious child.